When a criminal group threatens to freeze the entire planet, a polar bear is recruited by a spy agency and works together with his best friend to save humanity. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Betrayal Bear, Agent 008, from 2017. In a remote region of the Arctic, a mother bear teaches her cub how to survive in those snowy mountains. While looking for food, she finds two small teddy bears and gives them to Betrayal, who is extremely happy with his new friends. Suddenly, several bombs explode there and, in trying to save her cub, the mama bear ends up trapped under a large rock of ice. Since she can no longer move, she says goodbye to her son and throws him away before the bomb next to him explodes. That day, Betrayal loses his mother, but thanks to her, he manages to survive. Hours later, the little one is found in the snow and taken by a little girl who was passing by with her father. Since then, Betrayal has spent most of his time at the zoo to serve as an attraction for the humans. Every now and then, some clueless child comes along and starts throwing objects at the poor bear, but the animal already knows how to get rid of them. After completing his working hours at the zoo, Betrayal returns home and, after having breakfast, he takes a shortcut to the spy agency where he works. When he arrives, the bear is treated with great affection by his colleagues, who consider him a real member of the team. However, instead of working as a spy, which is his true dream, Betrayal works as a cleaner for the agency. One day, the polar bear spots one of the secretaries running to get to the bathroom and mistakes him for an intruder. While trying to capture the man, Betrayal makes a big mess in the corridors and, after identifying that the guy is Jessica's father, the bear has to rush to clean up before he gets fired. While cleaning up, he finds a pen that belonged to the agent and throws it in the trash. What Betrayal didn't realize was that the pen has a detonation mechanism which, when triggered, causes a huge explosion. Because of all his shenanigans, Betrayal loses his job and Jessica, the young woman who rescued him, pays him a visit to try to console him. It was her father who fired the bear from the agency, and the young woman says that he's just afraid that Betrayal will end up getting hurt. Since losing his mother, the bear hasn't spent a day without thinking about her, and, when she realizes that her friend is in need of support, Jessica hugs him. A few days later, a giant thorny sphere arrives in the country and destroys the White House. The ship then releases hundreds of mini-spheres that spread throughout the city and explode when touched. The news informs citizens of the danger of leaving their homes and assures them that the authorities are already working to find the source of the attack. However, every time the police helicopters approach the mother sphere, they end up being attacked and explode. Meanwhile, at the agency, one of the employees reports to the president that someone has hacked into the systems, and suddenly the person responsible for the attack decides to get in touch without showing his face. This person, whose identity has not yet been discovered, captures all the inhabitants and, while the police are distracted trying to find the person responsible for spreading bombs around the city, a gang of bears breaks into the banks and steals millions of dollars in diamonds. Seeing the group breaking into one of the banks, Agent X decides to go after them to investigate and uses his invisibility suit to avoid being captured by the enemies. However, his plan falls apart when he is detected by a security camera and, after being surrounded by bears, the man is captured. Agent X is then used as a bargaining chip in the negotiation between the criminals and the president of the Global Alliance. When he realizes that this guy is trying to communicate with his colleagues, one of the bears uses a gun to freeze him. Seeing this brutal scene, the other spies are terrified, but Jessica's father manages to decode the message transmitted by his friend and discovers that the criminals are actually polar bears. After discovering that only polar bears are capable of entering the enemy base without arousing suspicion, the president decides to send Betrayal to do the job. To do this, a chip needs to be installed in the animal's brain to give it the intelligence it needs to carry out the mission successfully. When he wakes up from surgery, Betrayal hears his friend Jessica's voice and learns that from now on, his spy code name is Agent 008. To test the bear's new abilities, the young woman sends several men to fight him at the same time and, after activating the chip that has been implanted in his brain, Betrayal becomes capable of defeating all those veteran agents single-handedly. Now that he's proved he's a good fighter, the bear is taken to the equipment room and Jessica shows him the functionalities of each piece of equipment that Betrayal will be using on this mission. One of the side effects of the chip is that it paralyzes the user's body. As a result, the bear will experience some paralysis during his work, but Jessica is already prepared to deal with this situation and sends a robotic bee to shock her friend. Immediately after receiving the electric discharge, Betrayal regains his movements and discovers that this micro-robot can also be used as a weapon. His first training consists of using firearms to eliminate his target, and then the bear learns how to hack security systems. The next day, Betrayal is tasked with rescuing an innocent man who is trapped in an enemy base and, in order to reach the victim, he has to pass through a laser trap. After saving his teddy bear, Agent 008 is hit by a missile and the explosion awakens in his subconscious the greatest trauma he has ever suffered in his life. At that moment, the bear remembers the day he lost his mother and flees in terror. Seeing her friends suffering, Jessica asks the Secretary of Defense to cancel the operation, but the man says that this is the only way to stop the enemies, so the young woman decides to accompany Beckham on this mission. As the pair fly towards the enemy base, they are chased by the explosive spheres, but Jessica manages to get rid of them. Soon afterwards, some aircraft approach and the polar bears send missiles to blow them up. As they are surrounded, the only way for the agents to survive is to abandon their aircraft and then cling to the enemy ship. In this way, the pair manage to reach the polar bear's base and Jessica has to think of a plan to get past the guards without being seen, because if that happens she won't have any chance of escaping. To prevent his friend from being captured, Beckham decides to continue the mission alone and Jessica follows the bear through the images emitted by the robot bee as he enters the villain's hideout through the pipe. However, while walking down the corridor, Agent 008 is caught by the guards and they realize that Beckham is an intruder, as he is wearing a different uniform from the rest of the team. When it realizes it has been discovered, the animal attacks the security guards, but fails to knock them down and ends up being captured. At that moment, the bee appears and, while the guards are distracted by the mini-robot, Beckham has the chance to take them down. The bear then takes the opportunity to steal one of the uniforms and trap the pair inside the bathroom. Minutes later, the agent finds a secret room filled with ice, which has been built to resemble the North Pole. In an attempt to find the villain who runs the place, Beckham joins the other guards walking in line to the elevator. Upon arriving upstairs, Agent 008 finds several tons of diamonds that have been stolen and Jessica asks him to go and investigate what those bears intend to do with those stones. Just then, he comes across a young bear who accidentally falls off the ramp. Frightened, Beckham tries to save her, but his body is paralyzed and they both fall. Luckily, before they hit the ground, they are pushed back up by a rubber band and, as soon as he recovers his movements, the bear runs away. Suddenly, the alarm goes off and Jessica realizes that her location has been discovered by the little robots patrolling the site. Just then, the guards who had their uniforms stolen show up and Beckham's disguise is revealed. While he tries to escape, Jessica has to fend off attacks from the bears who have set up an ambush to capture her, but the young woman is a highly trained spy and manages to dodge the attacks. When he realizes that he is surrounded and has nowhere to run, Beckham releases a bomb of tranquilizer darts to knock out the bears and uses an energy shield to protect himself. With the help of a firearm, Jessica manages to get rid of all her enemies, but is surprised by a giant robot bear that sneaks up and punches her. The young woman is then captured and placed in a machine that scans her memories and gives her enemies all the information they need to know in order to lure Beckham into a trap. Upon discovering his friend's location, the bear immediately sets out to save her. On the way, he encounters a giant robot that begins to chase him and fires tranquilizer darts at its target. During the escape, the agent dodges the guards who appear in front of him and they end up being hit by the darts. When he reaches an end, Beckham tries to escape through a small hole and the creature follows him. At this point, the robot destroys the wall and explodes when it hits the ground. Suddenly, the bear hears Jessica's voice and follows the sound in order to find his friend. However, the truth is that the young woman is unconscious and her voice has only been used as bait to attract Beckham. When he is attacked by the other bears, the agent uses a plank of wood as a shield to protect himself from the shots and waits for an opportune moment to throw mini bombs at the army that is trying to capture him. Beckham then rescues his friend, but is attacked by the giant robot and captured soon after. At this point, the commander tries to convince the agent to join him because, as Beckham is a polar bear, he can't be on the side of the humans. While her friend is trapped in the giant robot's clutches, Jessica gets up and attacks the machine to help Beckham free himself. Once again, however, she is defeated and the two agents become prisoners of the commander, who contacts the president of the Global Alliance and says that he will now have his revenge. Thanks to human greed, the polar bear's home has been destroyed. So the commander thinks it's only fair to make humans go through the same pain they have suffered. However, during this speech, Beckham manages to eliminate all the guards with his stinking gases and steals the remote control that controls the explosives. After disconnecting the devices, he and Jessica try to flee, but are pursued by the enemy army and have to jump off a cliff to escape. During the fall, Beckham is hit by the tranquilizer darts and passes out. Minutes later, the bear wakes up and has to crawl to the enemy ship being piloted by Jessica. The young woman uses the vehicle to escape from the base and manages to rescue her partner before he is arrested by the soldiers. However, just as the pair are about to escape from their hideout, Beckham is hit by another dart and ends up falling out of the aircraft. While passed out, Agent 008 dreams about his late mother and, when he wakes up, he receives a big surprise. the bear discovers that his mother didn't perish that day, as she is alive right in front of him. Overcome with emotion, mother and son embrace while Jessica contacts the agency and shares the location of the enemy hideout so that the president can send reinforcements. In tears, the young woman reveals that Batcom has been captured, but says that her friend is still alive and asks for help to rescue him. However, the Secretary of Defense says there is no time for that and orders Jessica to return to the agency, as they plan to destroy the polar bear base. Upon hearing this, Jessica's father tries to intervene and starts an argument in favor of Batcom, but it is the president who gives the final word and he decides to sacrifice Agent 008 to ensure that the city is not attacked. When she receives the president's verdict, Jessica tries to reason with the old man, but he refuses to send his men to rescue a polar bear. So the young woman decides to go it alone and, instead of running away, she goes to meet her friend. After hugging his mother, Batcom discovers that she is the commander and the bear tells him what happened on the day of the explosion. As a result of the impact, she was thrown far away and fell into a frozen lake. When she woke up, the commander was imprisoned in a cell and used as a guinea pig in a laboratory along with several other polar bears. After undergoing a series of extremely aggressive procedures, all these animals ended up dying and were buried together in a large grave. One night, during a storm, lightning struck their bodies and the bears came back to life. Since then, every time she wears her helmet, the commander acquires the ability to communicate with humans and has gone on to lead a team of polar bears to get revenge on humanity. At this point, she decides to tell Batcom her real plan and reveals that, after grinding up all those diamonds her army has stolen, they will have the most powerful air conditioner in the world. Next, her group intends to use this machine to cool the planet until it reaches the ideal temperature for polar bears to live. When this happens, all the humans on the planet will be extinct and the commander will finally be able to take her revenge. The bear then invites her son to join her and promises that, in the future, Batcom will be the commander of all polar bears. Upon hearing this, the lieutenant is furious and begins to form a plot to get rid of his competitor, as he intends to usurp the position of commander soon. That afternoon, Jessica breaks into the base looking for Batcom and, when she finds him, the young woman is extremely happy to know that her friend is alive. However, it isn't long before she is captured by the soldiers and the commander is surprised to learn that a human risked her own life to save Batcom. Because of this, instead of eliminating her, the bear orders her guards to take the young woman to prison and, before she is taken away, Jessica warns of the arrival of the Global Alliance agents. Suddenly, the giant robot appears and attacks the bears. The machine is being controlled by the lieutenant, who is willing to challenge anyone who tries to stop him from eliminating Batcom. When the young bear was about to be crushed, the commander used a stun gun to hold him back, but ended up being attacked and losing her helmet. Then another group of soldiers appears and, under the command of the lieutenant, they arrest Batcom and everyone who is standing next to him. After putting on his helmet, the lieutenant declares himself the new commander of the polar bears. Noticing that a large human army is approaching, the bear turns on the cooling machine and begins the process of freezing the earth. Determined to negotiate with the enemy, Jessica asks him to give humanity a chance to right the wrongs it has committed, but ends up being frozen. Before losing consciousness, she begs Batcom not to allow humans to be destroyed and, seeing her best friend petrified, the bear is furious. He immediately attacks the lieutenant and steals his gun, then freezes all the soldiers who try to eliminate him, but ends up being hit by the giant robot. Determined to stop the planet cooling, Agent 008 runs towards the machine and tries to disconnect the cables, but the lieutenant manages to catch up with him and lands several blows on his adversary. However, when the robot sends a missile to blow up Batcom, the bear uses its own body as a ramp to deflect it and the explosive destroys the cooling chamber. As a result of the explosion, the base begins to collapse and the lieutenant is crushed by the debris. Batcom is about to suffer the same fate when his mother appears and manages to save him. Now that the attack has been stopped, the president and his secretaries discuss the possibility of using nuclear weapons to eliminate the bears, but Jessica's father manages to convince him not to do it. However, the Secretary of Defense does not agree with the president's decision and presses the button to launch the nuclear missile. After recovering her helmet, the commander receives an alert that a nuclear weapon is approaching and decides to leave in order to destroy the missile before it reaches the base. After a brief chase, the bear captures the bomb with her aircraft and flies out of the Earth's atmosphere. In her last words, the commander asks her son to forgive her for having to leave him again. But this time, Batcom is determined to save his mother and uses the giant robot to rescue her from the ship before it explodes. After saving her mother and the planet, Agent 008 takes Jessica back to the agency and the young woman's father manages to unfreeze her. For defying the president's orders and putting the future of humanity at risk, the Secretary of Defense loses his job and ends up in prison. When she wakes up from her deep sleep, Jessica travels to the Arctic to look for Beckham, who has decided to run away to live with the polar bears and has never been seen again. Despite not finding him, the young woman comes across the teddy bears that her friend used to carry everywhere and sees his footprints in the snow. Even though she misses Beckham terribly, Jessica is happy to hear that he has found his mother again and now has the chance to live with a real family. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.